we tell the students, when you pay back your light, you have purchased a light for the next student. They bring their money every month, and they are so excited to own these lights. And you actually go to the schools, they're yellow, and they're on a little black stand. So there's little round yellow lights. And sometimes you go to the school and you see them all over the yard like solar sunflowers with their little batteries turned up to the sun.
You're listening to Connecting the Dots with Kenya Connect,
a podcast in collaboration with Kenya Connect and Simmons College, covering current issues in Kenya and beyond.
We'll be sitting down with Simmons faculty, Kenya Connect coordinators, and students over the course of 3 episodes, talking about issues that matter to them.
I'm Erin.
I'm Janelle.
And we're your hosts and virtual study abroad tour guides. Janelle, I was wondering if you could guess the letter grade you think Boston has currently for its energy and environmental efforts.
Boston. Mm-hmm. So not Cambridge.
No. Under Charlie Baker's administration, what letter grade?
Oh my God. Okay. Oh, Boston's letter grade. I'm going to guess a C+.
It is a solid C.
Oh.
This article from the Boston Globe notes the Baker administration deserves a, quote, middling grade for its energy and environmental efforts, according to a new report from several environmental groups. The report gave the administration a C for its work on issues ranging from energy and water to land protection and funding for environmental programs.
Oh, actually, you know what? That sounds kind of familiar. I was watching this video on Facebook. It's gone viral. It's this video titled Edible Water Bottles.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's basically this video. I forget, it was some kind of organization, and they created these kind of pods. Have you ever used like laundry pods?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but it's water inside of a pod, and the membrane that the water is encased in is edible.
Wow.
And it's the idea is that it would sort of reduce the use of plastic bottles and water, even though the amount of water that they can fit into a small pod does not equate to
a day's hydration.
Yeah. Just, carry around a big pod of water. No, yeah, but that was a pretty interesting video, and it did bring to my attention that we do use and waste a lot in this country.
We are a wasteful culture. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing, breaking down, and analyzing that wasteful culture with Gabrielle Longer. She's a junior here at Simmons. She is in the Sustainability Club, and we're going to be chatting with her about initiatives in the U.S. as they compare to our friends in Kenya.
And we're also going to be talking with Laura, again, from Kenya Connect, this time about sustainability and environmentally conscious efforts at the Learning Center. You're part of the Sustainability Club, right?
Yep.
How did you get involved?
Well, I'm an environmental science major, so I reasonably was like, what is the green clubs on campus? What is there I can do? And so I went to the thing that we have where all the clubs go, and I saw that there was a sustainability club. I had several friends that I'd already made that were in it, so I went ahead and joined in. I was like, this will be exciting. Hopefully I'll get some opportunities out of it.
So what kind of projects or things do you guys work on in the club?
Well, I know that there is a beehive on campus that was initially put in by the Sustainability Club. It was before I came around and before most of the club members was around. So we are still in partnership with them. However, we were thinking of doing something next year. I believe potentially as a club, but not officially as a club, we're going to apply for a mini grant to get vertical gardens growing on the campus.
What's a vertical garden?
It's like a hanging garden that
okay.
It'll hang off the side of Lefevre in theory. I believe one of the colleges nearby already has one, potentially Wentworth. I could be wrong. Okay. And so we're excited to try and work with the professors to try and get that done. And then another thing we do is every year we have an annual Earth Hour. There's an event where everyone shuts off the lights to raise awareness, and we try to have a glow-in-the-dark party every year.
So what would you say are some of the goals of the Sustainability Club on campus?
Some of our goals are mostly just to raise awareness about sustainability on campus. Some of the things that we see on campus that happen very often that aren't sustainable, every year we just think, how can we tackle this? How are other schools tackling it? And it's just a way of trying to incorporate that. Sometimes it's a bit of a struggle with administration and all the higher ups, such as like how there's so much plastic in the fens. That's like one thing we want to get to, but we don't necessarily know the right steps just yet because we'd have to go through our mark.
Do you have an example of a sort of campaign or project that the Sustainability Club is really proud of?
Yeah.
And sort of showed its benefits on campus?
I know that mostly it's just the beehive on campus. Some students were doing a senior independent study and we're working with the Sustainability Club to get the active hive on campus, and it's still an available thing to do for seniors for their research. They can go ahead and use the beehive to either make like sustainable products such as honey or cosmetics as well.
You said you took some environmental courses here at Simmons. What were some of those courses and what were they like?
I always view everything from an environmental perspective, and especially in the biological sciences, it always ends up playing a role just because of the ecology and how everything works together. Ecology is more or less not an environmental course, but it's definitely significant. I'm in environmental science right now. I'm in global energy and climatology right now with Professor Berger, and I'm also in environmental forum and environmental ethics. I'm in environmental economics right now. There's a whole list of courses I would need a reference list.
How are those courses tying together this semester for you?
For this semester, pretty well. This is maybe one of the first few times where I've had a course where I feel like we're going in depth into some of the problems, such as like the global energy course, we're going into climate feedback loops, like how emissions not only raise carbon, but how the carbon heats up the atmosphere and how glaciers then melt, and then when glaciers melt, you're losing albedo, and then it's just getting even hotter. Albedo is reflection of ice from solar rays, so we're losing albedo. We're also inputting more carbon. The carbon stays in the atmosphere for 100 years, so it doesn't go anywhere really. And then when there's more carbon, acid oceans kills the coral, less oxygen, more carbon. It just all feeds into itself. It was really in depth, and it's like sometimes like chasing your own tail when it comes to figuring out every feedback loop, but I think it's really fun.
My first exposure to like environmental issues and environmental sustainability as a whole happened in college. I wasn't really exposed too much in high school, so it's kind of led me to believe that it might be just an issue of lack of education.
Oh, that's interesting.
That could potentially be it. The reason I originally wanted to go into environmental science was actually from middle school. I live in Maryland, and so we're right on the Chesapeake Bay, which is an iconic case study for environmental problems. The Chesapeake Bay has a sea health rating right now. It has dead zones every summer because oxygen depletion that occurs from over nutrient happening, runoff goes into the bay, and then the phytoplankton bloom. So it's always been like an environmental consciousness for me. We had AP Environmental Science in my high school, so I was fortunate to take that, and every year we always had a section about environmental issues. So I think it could also potentially just be area as well.
Have you studied any sustainability efforts outside of the U.S. and sort of how has that differed?
I haven't really studied them too much. It does appear in some of our texts every once in a while. Every now and again, we know that there are some countries and areas where there isn't necessarily an option to invest in renewables because it's not the cheapest solution in some cases. And so I looked into the World Bank recently, and the World Bank, I believe, only funds 86% of energy funds to renewables, so potentially that would be able to help. But I believe because the companies are already so well established, it might be easier for them to use non-renewable sources and potentially sway away from non-renewable sources if they're already using them.
What are some ways that people who aren't a part of the Sustainability Club can sort of take actions and action steps on campus to sort of advocate for sustainability efforts in the U.S.?
Yeah, I believe usually it's just becoming conscious and aware. I know the recycling situation at Simmons tends to change. I don't know how necessarily it's changing. I just remember last semester there were more recycle bins, and now I don't see as many recycle bins. Granted, though, we looked into it, and recycle bins are fairly expensive. The small blue bins that are in all the classrooms, those are recycling. And not many people even know that that's a recycle bin, but that's all we could afford.
Oh, wow.
And then just making more of a voice, avoiding using the plastic at our mark because it's already included in their costs, which is hard to do because there's no other way you can grab your food out of the fens. And I know we are working to push, or there's a group of students that aren't necessarily in Sustainability Club, but they talk to me sometimes about what they're doing, and I believe it's for their program. They're going to be trying to push composting back at Bartle Hall.
After talking to Gabby, we were eager to sit down again with Laura Carter to discuss Kenya Connect's projects involving sustainability and how these are impacting the Wamunyu community.
So here we are on the equator, nearly on the equator, and it gets dark at 6:30 promptly every night all year. There's no longer days in this because we're so close to the equator.
Mm.
So at 6:30 it's dark. So by the time they get home from school, most of them have to go collect water. Then they have to take care of the chickens, the goats, the cows, the garden. They have to oftentimes work in the fields, help their mother with collecting firewood to prepare dinner, help preparing dinner, taking care of the younger siblings. And many of these chores fall to the girls, but the boys also have chores. So by the time dinner is done, it's dark. And there's no light. There's no electricity. Their farms, their shambas are remote. There is no electricity. There's no running water. So when it gets dark, it's done. There's no more that can be done. And the main source of light for most of these homes is kerosene lanterns, many of which are just homemade out of a tin can and a piece of string. So one, that kind of lamp is dangerous. Two, kerosene lamps are very smoky and they make your eyes burn. We call it the Kamba cough. You often hear children sort of coughing, and it's because they're ingesting a lot of smoke in the evenings in their homes. And kerosene, finally, is very expensive. And the price of kerosene has gone up in recent years. It continues to rise. So for some families, once it gets dark, everybody goes to bed and there is no light. They can't afford to keep that kerosene lamp burning. And they certainly can't keep it burning for the children. Even though they highly prize education here and they believe in school for their children, and they move heaven and earth to make sure that their children get a good education. If they can't afford the kerosene, they just can't. So very little reading or studying can happen at night. And so we thought that by providing these solar lights, we could enable many of our at-risk primary students to study and practice reading at night, and thereby gain the skills they need to pass the test, to move on in school, to get into secondary school. But ultimately, we would like for every child in the community to have one.
Do you have any specific metrics or numbers on how many students currently have the lights?
Gosh, I can ask James, but I want to say it's, oh my goodness, it might be 1,000.
That's
by
great.
now.
Wow.
Or more. I'm walking around with my computer now. I'm going to ask James. Hey guys.
Yes.
Say hi to Erin and Janelle.
Hi.
That's
Hi.
the first. I'm going to ask James this question. So James, how many students do we have now currently who have solar lights about? Do you know?
Currently, we have 1,300 students.
That's amazing. And are they all primary school students?
Actually, the 1,300 are students from primary school, and we have another 500 students from secondary school. We are working with another rural village called Chaidani, which comprises of 2 secondary schools, and they are the ones with about 500 lights.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much for telling us those numbers.
Karibu sana.
I knew he'd know them.
The final sustainability project we want to discuss is the liquid soap project.
So could you just walk us through kind of the timeline
Yeah.
of how it all comes
Okay.
together?
Okay. So we've been working on hand washing at our schools for several years now. And through a couple of different organizations and donors, we were able to provide a hand washing stand at each school, which we had custom made by local metal workers here. And it's just basically a box on a stand that holds a small water tank to which is affixed a porcelain sink and a tap. So they have running water to wash their hands. We gave one to each school. And in addition, we gave them about a month's supply of soap. So fast forward 2 years, and we begin going around to the schools to investigate how is the hand washing going. We had taught them a hand washing song about the times to wash your hands, before you eat, before you cook, after the toilet, and after washing animals. It goes like this. After going to the toilet, wash your hands, wash your hands. After going to the toilet, wash your hands, wash your hands. Wash your hands with soap and water, and don't forget your nails. After going to the toilet, wash your hands, wash your hands. So we taught the song. We gave them soap. We came back a year later. Some of the sinks were broken. Some of the taps were broken. Some of the tanks, the water tanks, were empty, and none of them had soap. So we began asking why. We've made this big investment in hand washing stations and the song. Why are we not using them? And it turns out the said that they could not afford to buy more soap. So that was the first thing. They had no soap because they couldn't afford to buy it. And then they sort of fell out of use, and they fell out of repair. And they didn't have money, or they felt they didn't have money to repair them. So they let it go. So we came back around again with another set of statistics and talked about how we took a look at the infestation of worms across the schools. And we found that we were giving deworming medication, and the worm infestations went down. And then they would go home on school break, and the worm infestation would go back up again. So we just felt like we were sort of pouring money in a hole and not getting the results that we wanted. So their food is already nutritionally poor. The food is good, and it is fresh, and it is grown locally, which is wonderful. But it's low in nutritional value. So when you're trying to also sort of harvest a crop of worms in your stomach, then you are really wasting what nutritional value is in your food on these worms. So that, again, is keeping kids out of school. It's making them less alert in school. So we knew we needed to do something. And through the magic of the interwebs and internet and social media, we came across a Kenyan woman, Justina Pereira, who was working with a grant from UNICEF on a program called WASH, Water and Sanitation Hygiene.
Okay.
So she's been working with a very big grant from UNICEF in the Kitui area, which is about 60 kilometers away from us. And she's been going to the schools, and she developed a program that got community buy-in for this whole hand washing endeavor. And that was to go to a school and have the school form a health club. And the health club would consist of some students, teachers, and parents. The health club would then manage and operate a sustainable soap making project. She brought to the school the ingredients and the recipe for making liquid soap. So for 600 shillings, which is slightly under $6, you can make 30 liters of soap.
Wow.
And then you sell that soap. Yeah. Then you sell that soap in used water bottles, which are 1 liter bottles, which is another good side benefit of sort of using up all these plastic bottles. Mm-hmm. So you sell a 1 liter plastic bottle of this liquid soap for 50 shillings. And you sell 20 of those liters. You keep 10 for your school. The profit that the school makes on the soap that they sell is enough to buy the next batch of ingredients to make another 60 liters. So Justina came to Kenya Connect and did training for us with teachers and parents here at the center. And then we had 34 schools represented. And we sent each one of those schools home with all the materials to make their first batch. And and then we set up a WhatsApp, which is a social media sort of social group online. And they can post pictures and keep us updated about what's happening at their school. And it's become sort of competitive. The schools posting pictures of their children making soap and talking about how they've sold it. And we're on our third batch. One of them said, the soap making is hotcakes, because they're on their third batch.
After our chat with Gabby and Laura, we feel hopeful for the future of sustainability in Kenya and the United States. So we're so happy to pass the mic along to the children of Kenya Connect to chat about how solar energy has impacted their ability to read at home, and also how the Sustainable Soap Project has impacted their ability to stay hygienic, clean, and healthy.
My name is Muwamol. I am in class 6 at Kambiti Primary School. Soap making me clean and washing my dish and our clothes. I wash my hands after visiting my toilet.
My name is Vat Kideka. I am in class 6 in Kambiti Primary School. I have solar lamp. It is brighter than kerosene.
My name is Rose. I'm in standard 7 at Kambiti Primary School. I use my solar light at doing my homework. It assists me because I am improving at my readings. Soap making has helped us because it's helping us with washing our clothes and washing our utensils.
My name is Sewai. I am in class 7 at Kambiti Primary School. I have had my solar light for 3 weeks. I use solar light at home by reading and doing homework. The solar lamps have changed the studies at home because we don't buy kerosene. We make soap to assist us in washing clothes and cleaning our house. My uniform is very clean.
Thank you for listening to Connecting the Dots with Kenya Connect.
Tune into our next episode where we'll be comparing recent reading initiatives in Kenya and the Democratic Republic of the Congo.